Okay, we last left off talking about indirect objects. So we're going to go ahead and practice, and this sentence pattern is going to fall under our subject plus our action verb plus our indirect object plus the direct object, okay? So let's go ahead and do number 8 together. You will do number 9 and 10 on your own though. Okay, so here is our sentence. We lent the producer our house until summer. So as we're reading this, we need to figure out who the subject is here. Okay, so who is this sentence all about, or who is doing, who is going to be doing the verb, the action verb here? Okay, so we lent the producer our house until summer. Our subject is going to be we. So I'm going to put the S over my W. Next we need to figure out what our action verb is. So where's our verb in the sentence? We lent the producer our house until summer. Now lent is going to act as our action verb. So I'm going to put an AW above lent. And then we want to go ahead and still continue on and try to ask ourselves, now who is going to be receiving the action? I don't know, let me try to fix this S, there we go. Who is going to be receiving the action here of the house? So when I'm looking at that, my indirect object is going to be producer in this case. Let me shift this up a little bit. It's going to be the producer. The producer is going to be the one benefiting. And then the direct object, so what is being lent? That's going to be the house. So I'm going to put DO above house. Okay? So remember, when you're doing these, you want to ask yourself, who is the sentence about? That's going to be your subject. Your next step is to figure out what kind of verb do you see in the sentence. Is there an action verb, a linking verb, a helping verb? In this case, we have an action verb, something you do. You lend something out. And then you want to ask yourself, who is going to be receiving this lending of property? Okay, that's going to be the producer. He's the one who's going to be receiving the action. Okay, and then what is the noun that's going to be received? The house. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, remember you're going to cross out until summer. And what I want you to do at this point is go ahead and pause the video and do 9 and 10 on your own. Please keep in mind you want to go ahead and identify any prepositional phrases or any infinitives and cross them out. Okay, so I would cross until summer out. That would be one of my prepositional phrases. Okay, so at this time, pause it and go through and complete 9 and 10. Now after our indirect objects, we're going to jump back to some of our other types of verbs. We talked about action verbs. We know that those are going to be physically or mentally something that you do. Next we have linking verbs. Okay, now linking verbs can be tricky. They are going to be verbs that express a state of being. Okay, so they're going to be called linking verbs because they link the subject of the sentence to a word or a phrase in the predicate that's going to rename the subject or maybe describe the subject. Okay, it's going to tell us more about the state of being for the subject. Now some examples for linking verbs are am, is, are, was, were, has been, are being, might have been, become, and seem. Now there's a lot more with it. You can also think of like appear, feel, grow, look, prove, remain, smell, sound. Now these ones can be tricky though because sometimes these type of verbs are linking verbs, but sometimes they're actually action verbs as well. Okay, so verbs like smell, that could either be an action verb or a linking verb. Now a good way to tell the difference is to ask yourself, can you substitute the smell or the action word? So if I had smell as my verb here, can I substitute that word with am, is, or are, and does the sentence still make logical sense? Now if it does, you have a linking verb, okay? Now if it doesn't after you do the substitution and the sentence no longer makes sense when you substitute either am, is, or are, then you have an action verb instead. Okay, so that's kind of a good general rule of thumb for those. So here's the example. Ask yourself, can you substitute the word for is, are, or am? Now if you can, it's going to be a linking verb. So here's an example. I smell the amazing pizza. Okay? Now if I substituted my word smell for am or are or is it going to make sense? So I am the amazing pizza? No, that doesn't make any sense. So this is an action verb here, okay? So your subject is I. That's what the sentence is about. You also have your action verb smell. After that, you have an adjective describing our noun, and that's going to be pizza. Okay? Let's take a look at the next one. The pizza smells amazing. Now if I look at this verb and I substitute it out for is, are, or am, I'm going to do is in this case. Let's see if it makes sense. The pizza is amazing. Now that makes sense and that sounds good. So this is going to be an example of a linking verb. So smells is my linking verb. And I have a predicate adjective at the end here, and we're going to talk about those in just a moment. So let's take a look at a couple examples for our linking verbs. Okay? Now on the side here, I have a whole list of all kinds of different linking verbs to help us. Okay? I want you to identify the linking verb within the sentence. So as I'm looking at this, it says King Kong is a huge gorilla with black fur. Okay? Now I know that is a linking verb. So I'm going to put LV and I'm going to label that above is. Okay? So for this portion, I just want you to label the linking verbs for me. I would also like for you to go ahead and label the subject though. So I have my verb already, and that's going to be is in the sentence. Now I want to do my subject, so I'm just going to do an S. And King Kong is my subject in this sentence. So just identify the subject and just identify the linking verb for this practice. Okay, so go ahead and pause, and you can do 12, 13, and 14 in your notes. Now I have other kinds of verbs as well. So we have linking verbs, we have action verbs, and we have one last kind to go over. And those are going to be our helping verbs. Okay? Think of them like an assistant. They provide extra meaning to the main verb in a sentence, and together the two form a verb phrase. Now a verb phrase is still viewed as a singular part of speech, and you just call it a verb. So even though there's going to be two words, it's a verb phrase, you just call it a verb. Okay? So let's take a look at some examples. We have words such as am, is, are, was, were, been, being, be, may, and all sorts of other ones. So these are all examples of helping verbs. These are going to be examples of the words you will be studying for next Tuesday's quiz. So I put together a sentence and it says, Susie may arrive on time. So just like before, I want to identify any prepositional phrases, and when I do that, I'm going to change or get rid of my prepositional phrase, and we're just going to ignore it for the time being, okay? Because we're really going to just look at the necessities for our sentence. So we have Susie may arrive. Now the subject is going to be Susie because that's who the sentence is about, and then I have the verb may and arrive. Now the action verb is going to be arrive. This is what you're doing, and you can physically see someone arrive, and your helping verb is going to be may. Going to be kind of like a description. It's going to add more information about our verb. So it's going to be our helping verb here. Okay, it provides extra meaning to our main verb. Now, together, they create just a verb phrase. All right? So let's go ahead and take a look at our next example. Now, our next example is going to be the predicate adjective. Now, the predicate adjective is just kind of a fancy way of saying an adjective that's going to follow a linking verb, and it's going to describe our subject. Okay, remember predicates are going to typically be your verb, and an adjective is going to be a descriptive word for a noun, so keep that in mind. When we're looking at this sentence pattern, you have the subject first, you have the linking verb in the middle, and then it's going to be followed by that predicate adjective describing the subject and linking the verb. So if I look at number 15 together, I have butterflies are fragile. So what is my subject? I'm going to ask myself. The sentence is all about butterflies. That's the main thing. So my subject will be butterflies. And then from there I need to ask myself, what is my linking verb. Remember, this isn't an action verb, it's a linking verb. Now my linking verb here is going to be are. So my LV, I'm going to put right above are. And then it's going to be followed by a predicate adjective. Now my predicate adjective that's describing the subject is fragile. So how is the subject? The subject is fragile. So this is going to be the predicate adjective. So PA, and that's going to go right above my last word. Okay? So take a look at the next two examples, 16 and 17, and go ahead and pause the video and do those on your own. Now for our final example, we have the predicate noun. So this is our last type of complement, and this is our last type of sentence pattern. Now predicate nouns are just nouns that follow a linking verb, and it's actually going to rename the subject. So it's going to give our subject a different title or a different name. So that's kind of crucial to listen to and pay attention to in our writing and in our reading, because we do it quite a bit. So if I do number 18 as an example, monarch butterflies are insects. So I need to take a look and see what is my subject. Now as I'm looking at it, I notice that my subject is going to be butterflies, monarch butterflies to be specific, but I'm going to put my subject over butterflies. My linking verb, once again, is going to be are, so LV for my linking verb, and that's just one that I have memorized, a state of being. And then I need to ask myself, what is being renamed here? So it's renaming my subject, okay, a noun that follows my verb. So I'm looking over, and this is a noun, insects is a noun, it's following my verb, and it's renaming my butterfly. Butterflies are insects. So now there's a new title, and that's going to be PN, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put that right above insects, okay? Monarch is just going to be an adjective describing my subject, so keep that in mind. I want you to go ahead and at this time do 19 and 20 together. I'm sorry, on your own. So once we go over it on our own, you've done them all individually. Tomorrow in class I'll come around and check for them, and we will go through and we will be pulling sticks to have you guys answer how you did on our practice, and we'll go through that as a class to ensure the correct answers and make sure that we understand our different sentence patterns and to ensure that we understand our different types of complements. Okay? I know this was quite a bit of information, so please make sure that you go back and review the video if you need to, or if maybe there is a section that you didn't quite understand. I highly suggest rewinding, listening to it maybe another time to gain some deeper understanding for it. Okay? Once you finish with the presentation and once you finish with your notes on page 5 and 6 in your interactive notebook, you want to go ahead and begin the worksheet practicing your sentence types. Okay? This worksheet will be for homework if you do not finish, so please keep that in mind. I'll check for that tomorrow in class as well. If you happen to finish the worksheet before the end of class and you finish the presentation along with the notes, what I would like for you to do is go on to Google Classroom, and I know yesterday in class we began the Greek creation stories as the read aloud. What I want you to do is go to Google Classroom, click on the Greek creation stories, and I want you to begin annotating. So I want you to annotate the same way that we annotated the other creation stories, okay? So any words you don't know should be highlighted in pink. Everything else should be highlighted in yellow. Now anything highlighted in yellow should be referring back to either important information for our star, either surprising information with an exclamation point, or maybe confusing or difficult information to understand, and that would be with a question mark. Okay? Alright, I hope you guys have a great night, and I will see you tomorrow.